Alright, welcome back to the Conquest once again. We're basically doing a continuation of what I wanted to do this morning, which was tier list and then play Project Diva. Second half is going to be unrecorded, so definitely stick around for that part. But I wanted to do another tier list because I had such fun with the first one this morning. So we are going to do a tier list of, drum roll please, where's the thing? Is it live? Yes! Studio Ghibli Films! So, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. It's pretty, I want to say, easy tier list. It's basically like movies that I really enjoyed, ones that I'd watch again, ones that I think were overall overrated, I've only watched once, or I haven't watched at all. So, this will be relatively easy. I think we'll start with the ones that I haven't watched first. Kind of go from there. So, let's go ahead and get started. And actually, before we do that, I do want to do one more thing. So let me just teleport out of here. Teleport's behind you. Whoa. And then yes, and then okay, and then okay, we get. Omae wa mo shinderu. Nani? Whip. I'm back. Okay. So yeah, going back to the tier list. I think. Okay, so the first ones I have not watched: Yamada's, Cat Returns, Only Yesterday, Tale of Princess Kaguya, Ariete, Whisper of the Heart, Pompoko, and Grave of the Five Flies. Okay, so this will be a little bit shorter. So many that I need to watch. If anything, so ones that I really definitely want to watch, probably Ariete. I've heard Cat Returns is good, but Whisper of the Heart is not. Oh, and there's Grave of the Fireflies as well. And Kaguya. Okay. Let's see here. Next one, I guess in the list, Princess Mononoke. Have that on repeat. So basically just constantly playing all the time. Not actually, but if I could, I would. Interestingly enough, I used to think it was on the overrated genre, because I know that a lot of people liked it. I myself was not a fan. Yeah, obviously the animation, and disclaimer, the animation on all of these is incredible. So we obviously don't need to go into that, but I didn't really like the story plot. There was a lot of weird stuff happening, and I'm like, do I actually enjoy this film? Or is it just kind of like, what is going on? And I was on YouTube, and there was a guy just kind of talking about why he actually enjoyed the film overall. And kind of going into the characters, how they were all like pretty much like morally ambiguous. They didn't, you know, even the people that you would almost argue are the bad guy were not actually like the bad guy. It was a very gray movie in that sense. There was no clear right or wrong, because even Irontown, the leader in that, she took in lepers and people that wouldn't even be like cared for or helped or anything, and gave them jobs, gave them a place to live, and treated them relatively normally. And so, just overall, there's a lot of like, okay, well, it's bad, but is it actually like bad? And then even the monk, you're like, oh, he's like a good character, and then he's like, oh, I'm actually trying to steal the head of this forest spirit, and it's just like, oh, okay, so you're not really a good character. And then there's obviously like Princess Mononoke. Well, and then there's the main character. We'll probably go into him first and foremost. And this is something that happens in a lot of Ghibli movies that I feel like a lot of people don't really recognize sometimes. It's that the main character kills people, like left and right. There's that one scene at the very beginning where he's riding through a battle and he just like straight up beheads somebody with an arrow. And there's actually a surprising amount of killing that goes into these movies where people are just killed outright. And I feel like this one was one of the more violent movies overall. But yeah, no, at first, didn't really like it, but after coming to understand it more, watching it more, one of, if not probably my favorite. We'll see as we go through the list here. Spirited Away. I feel like that's kind of an easy one as well. Also really up there. You know, just the world building, the story plot, the character development in that movie was amazing. Chihiro, if I remember her name correctly, starts off as just this annoying little brat. And through all of this, like, trial and tribulation and just growth opportunities, and having been essentially separated from her parents, she grows up as a person. And I think that this is definitely kind of. I want to. I struggle to. I reach to almost call it a coming of age story type thing because she's going from an environment that she knows, friends that she knows, and she's being a brat about it and complaining and whining. And she goes through this experience with people she's never known before because they're all dead spirits, and her parents are turned into giant pigs. And she could basically live forever in this alternate world and reality. And she comes out of it, and she grows up as a person because she's much more confident towards the end. Like freaking, she towards the very beginning when she was given jobs to do or like having to do jobs, she barely left like a piece of coal, one piece of coal. Like, are they feeding her? Anyway, but yeah, just all the character designs, the world building, everything in this movie. It's fantastic. There's a reason that people love this movie. It used to be my favorite, I believe, for quite a while. I would constantly just think, okay, this is the movie, right? This is the best Studio Ghibli movie, no matter what. But I believe that did get overtaken by Princess Mononoke. But it's still a really good one. Obviously, if there's like ever a movie to recommend to somebody, I'd recommend Spirited Away. I would almost argue it's like the gateway, whereas Princess Mononoke is like the refined taste. You know? So like once you really come to appreciate the kind of stories that can come out of just a Ghibli film in general, then Princess Mononoke is probably going to be up there. Howl's Moving Castle. And also, slight disclaimer, I know that we are missing some movies from Studio Ghibli. I believe most of these are just Miyazaki film. Oh, Poppy Hill. That's also down here. The list just got shorter. But, yeah, as far as these, and again, if I included more films, it would just be more of this, so there's no reason to do that, unfortunately. So, moving on. Howl's Moving Castle. What do I do with you? It's definitely not a one-and-done movie. I definitely watch it again, but part of me feels it's almost overrated. No, I'd watch it again. It's not necessarily overrated. I would argue that the sort of love story that comes out of everything is a little cheesy towards the end, keeping in mind this is based off of the actual literary work. So I'm sure it would have turned out much differently had they had a little bit more say in the outcome of the plot. Then again, I need to do more research on that because I don't know how the actual book ends. But music's awesome. You know, the Merry-Go-Round of Life, if I remember correct, is the song of that movie. The characters are all great. You know, the old grandma in that, or the girl that becomes a grandmother. She's awesome. You know, she embraces being an old person, and I almost feel like she's more suited as being an old person than anything else, because she's just so sassy. Like you rewatch that movie and you realize just how much sass old people sometimes get, and I don't know what it is. It's like, you know how they tell you when you're growing up that your brain is still developing for most of your life. I believe they say usually it develops longer for men than women because women mature faster. But either way, I want to argue there's a part of everybody's brain, the sort of sass factor, that continues to grow with age. And by the time you're super old, and by that I want to say like 80 on up. You know, obviously there's people that are really healthy and stuff at 80, but I just feel like the sass factor that all those people have goes through the freaking roof. So, yeah, great movie. The food scenes, also incredible. The stair climbing scene is also a highlight, just because it's utterly ridiculous. There's an entire, I want to say, like 5 to 10 minute segment just dedicated to climbing giant set of stairs. And you have an old woman carrying a fat dog and a really, really fat person as well. So, yeah, no, it's a great movie. The magic behind it is also really, really good. So, yes, Tales of Earthsea, years ago, many moons in the past, I watched this movie, and I was not a fan. I might have to rewatch it, but I don't remember enjoying it enough at the time to actually say that it was actually enjoyable. It sounds like from the title and from the like cover art alone that it would be an amazing movie, but for some reason I felt like it really just did not grab my attention at all. I remember, and again, obviously, opinions either change over time. Yeah, if Princess Mononoke is anything to, you know, use it as an example, opinions change over time, and I know that feelings obviously become a little bit more dulled as time goes on as well. But I really don't feel like I came out of that movie actually with any sort of positive feelings whatsoever. If anything, I was either more confused or angry that I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I should have. Because I knew going into it that it was a Studio Ghibli film. And so I was like, oh gosh, I'm really looking forward to this. And it ended and I'm like, what? So that's going in the one and done. I don't know if I'll ever revisit that one. But if I do, it's gonna have to be through some sort of means that might be similar to how Blackbeard might have gone about it, just because I don't necessarily think it's warranting of spending any sort of money. Which, most of these movies that are in the... actually, I think all of these movies, aside from Earthsea, that are left, I actually own. And so... yeah, moving on. Ponyo. Yes. Okay. This one's also going on the on-repeat category. I know a lot of people look at this movie and they think, wow, that art style is really kind of basic. How do I put this? It's definitely not as deep as I feel like a lot of the other movies are. I think it lends more itself, though, to just the color palette of the movie. Obviously, a lot of blues, because it's basically The Little Mermaid. And you also have some shading aspects of it are also a little off as well. But the humor of it's really great. The fact that it's in a portside town, it's really great. The ocean's fantastically drawn. They go above and beyond in the water there. And then, interestingly enough, most of these movies you'll come to find, or at least the ones that I'm currently talking about, the characters either have something to do with aviation, I guess Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away aside as well. Wow. Okay, so the top three. But it usually have something to do with aviation or flying in some way, shape, or form. And so I know that Miyazaki, if anything, either wanted to become a pilot of some sort or just loved aviation in general. So it's not a surprise that it's in all of his movies. But it just seems like with a lot of the more popular ones, because I would almost argue the ones at the bottom, barring Grave of the Fireflies and maybe Arrietty, are the more popular ones that people watch. And so I definitely feel like it's very much possible that I put different amounts of sort of himself into the movies. Anyway, yeah, Ponyo. At first, I didn't necessarily like it. I remember seeing it in theaters, and I was like, it was good. The animation was really good. I was young at the time, so I think it was also one of those situations where my parents were like, "Let's take them. We'll go watch the kids' movie. We'll waste some time, and then we'll be done." I actually think I saw Spirited Away in the movie theaters as well. Also, the same thing. I was even younger, and I think my parents were like, "Oh, it's an animated movie," and I remember watching it. And I'm like, "Huh." But I don't remember liking Ponyo when it first came out. Like, I literally went decades without watching it again. And when I did watch it again, I loved it. So that one's on repeat. And the tone, especially compared to Princess Mononoke, is like night and day, right? If Princess Mononoke is like the pinnacle of a violent movie in the sort of Ghibli, specifically Miyazaki line of works there, then Ponyo is basically, I want to say, the most kid-friendly. Now, keep in mind, again, we're ignoring all of the bottom of the list, so if there's any thoughts or opinions on any of those movies and I have not watched, I obviously have none. But out of all the ones that I've seen so far, which are included in the rest of this list here, definitely the most lighthearted. Even more than Kiki's Delivery Service, I would argue, which is second in sort of the kid-friendly aspect there. So we will go to The Wind Rises. I'd watch it again. I'm actually thinking about this one. I'm trying to sort of also like preload the next movie before I place it, so I was pretty confident about the first placement of that movie. But The Wind Rises, I might put more in the overrated category. Yeah, I think it's going to go there. I feel real bad, too, because I know, once again, that Miyazaki just loves aviation. It's a passion of his. And so, from what I remember, this was like the movie for him. Because it was talking about all about the life of this guy who made the aircraft for Japan during World War, I believe, II. And so... because I have watched this one recently as well. Most of these movies, barring Castle in the Sky, I would argue, I've watched actually relatively recently. And then maybe Spirited Away. It's been a little while, but I just love that movie. Anyway, I don't remember coming out of The Wind Rises with like shock and awe. And I think the problem that kind of stemmed from it is that it's too grounded in actual reality. I know they obviously have some of those dream sequences in play when it comes to the Italian aircraft designer, and that's cool, but the movie essentially, if you break it down in plot points, is kid wants to be an aviator, more of a pilot, but he can't, and so he designs planes instead. He's inspired by his hero in Italy, who's making planes. He ends up going somewhere because they start making planes for the government. And he goes somewhere to kind of like relax and learn some more, and just he ends up falling in love. But when it comes down to it, he has to decide between like the woman that he ends up loving and his love for aviation, and he just chooses aviation. Um, and I mean, I get it. You know, with stuff like that, sometimes the heart wants what it wants, but I don't know. It's They definitely make a decision, that's for sure. I just don't know if it was one that I really particularly enjoyed. And I know it was, in fact, true history for the most part. Um, Again, I need to do more backstory on that as far as like learning what it was inspired by. Same with Howl's Moving Castle. But again, I think what it also suffers from is being too grounded in reality there. And if anything, I think it, in some cases, hits a little bit harder because a lot of the pain and suffering you see in that movie is a lot more closer to home. You can't just think like, oh, in Princess Mononoke's case, she's really sad because the great tree spirit is being attacked, and you're just like, okay, yeah, no, I feel sad for you too because nature and whatnot, but we don't necessarily have great big tree spirits that walk around at night, and so or in giant deer form in the day. Even that deer kind of creeped me out a little bit. At first, I feel like I had an uncle that looked pretty close to them, but we're not going to get into that. Anyway, the next movie on the list, Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind. Where do we... Because I just watched this one on Tuesday. Was it Monday or Wednesday? I watched this one this week. So I'm kind of struggling where to put it. It's definitely in the top 2. Man, I even tried thinking about this a little bit as well before I actually got into it. I always hate it when I just have like this slight pause between placing it. I think I just gotta go with my gut here. Okay, Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind. I see it. What do I think? Okay. We'll go with on repeat. The reason is I want to say this is one of the earlier ones that I watched, and that I got it again recently and watched it again. The bugs creep me out, but there's a lot of stuff in these films that creep me out sometimes. But the bugs especially. The Ohm are really weird. And I would almost argue that it's kind of almost laughable when you have the main character that's just like, if I love everything, everything will be fine. When that's clearly not the case. Like, up until literally the last moment when it's almost like, I will trust you to stop, and she quite literally gets steamrolled over. Roller da! By the Ohm there. That she actually has that sort of impact on everything. Because up until that point, everybody's fighting and there's all this war. And they live in this really peaceful area, and then war finds them. And then there's this huge nature argument about it. But I think what I like about this movie, and the reason that it's on repeat rather than watch it again, is also because of those things. While it's kind of cheesy in some aspects, it's not quite, love, romance level of cheesy. It's like trying to be loving and caring towards all people and things. And I know that the world is a very harsh and rough place, but I definitely feel like it's not necessarily a bad mentality to have. Like, especially over the last year, and especially in the VTube community, I would say is a good example. I constantly see all the time people that, obviously will be hurting and stuff, but I see equally, if not more, just love and support from everybody in the community. And it's awesome. It's one of the reasons why I love it so much. And so, while at first I would come to think of Nausicaa's actions and just thoughts and behavior about everything as very naive to a sense, because quite literally, there's a section where also quick cover your ears for the next like 30 seconds if you don't want to be spoiled, or put on mute whatever you're doing. Imagine somebody covering their ears with headphones and still hearing everything. Anyway, real quick, her dad dies, is murdered, and she gets super angry and pissed off, and rightfully so. But after that initial like burst of fiery anger, she's like, I still care about you guys and I don't want you to die. Which I guess in some sense is actually pretty commendable. Because I know I'd be pretty upset for a long time if anything bad happened to anybody that I loved. And whoever did it, it would probably take me a while to forgive them. And I don't know if I ever could, really, depending on what happened. And not necessarily, well, yeah. You know, it'd be tough. And I don't know if I would ever necessarily truly forgive. More just kind of accept it's what happened and just kind of move on. Whereas she, in the span of, I want to say, at least a day, goes to saving the leader of the people that killed her. Oh, also, again, spoiler, it's probably been more than 30 seconds, but her dad, you know? So it'd be nice if kind of everybody, everywhere, kind of took a real hot second to just sit and think, like, if we tried to spread sort of those positive feelings and messages more, the impact it could have. Because the world is really harsh, and it's really tough. But almost because of that, I feel like we need to help and support each other. You know, it's really hard to face it alone for anybody. So, yeah, wow, that got a lot deeper than I thought. Holy crap. Wow. That's crazy. Okay, well, I guess that it definitely goes there now, because it, as a sort of analysis of the movie and just how I feel like it can apply to today in our situation, with especially all of last year, when I just feel like it was filled with hate and anger, especially in Twitter. I hated going on Twitter sometimes because I would hop on and there'd just be all this horrible stuff happening, and equally so, like, it being allowed to happen. It was crazy. But anyway, let's move on. Castle in the Sky. I definitely watch it again. I don't think it's necessarily like super crazy over the top. I may change my mind during the middle of this kind of talk here, so we'll see. But this one is kind of in the middle, because I haven't seen it often enough to remember everything off the top of my head. I think I have a pretty good idea. What I do like, we'll touch upon these points first, is that it's not just about Laputa, right? That's kind of the antithesis and the crux of the entire story. But when it comes to Castle in the Sky, it also has the underground segments, right? And so you have those segments where it's like very grounded in reality, etc. And there's just this random girl. And for some reason, I feel like girls are constantly getting kidnapped in these movies. Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, technically she was abandoned. Nausicaa, there's a girl that's kidnapped. Her herself is not. Castle in the Sky, she's kidnapped. Howl's Moving Castle, she is turned old, so she's robbed of her age. They kidnapped that, I guess. We'll go with that. Porco Rosso, just looking down at the remainder of the list, the opening scene is kidnapped girls. Wow. I wonder if there's something deeper there. Probably not. Anyway. Castle in the Sky. I do like that it is kind of like an adventure movie, if you think about it, because there's this like mythical... It's very much like Uncharted and that series, if anybody's ever seen that. just because there's this one mythical place and it's legendary, and it's like, oh, there's a castle that floats in the sky, and it's real. It's kind of like the cloud. I'm just gonna call it Cloud City arc in One Piece, where it's like, oh my gosh, like they live in the sky, you know. And I feel like that's kind of where a lot of awe comes into it, is because out of all of the different sort of realms that there are on this earth, between the three of them, I would argue sky, earth, and then water, be it the oceans. The sky, I would almost argue, is our least like conquered. I know people say we've explored less of the oceans, but we were sailing on the oceans far before flying through the skies. And when we fall, and like in the things that propel us in the skies fail, we fall. Like there's no coming back from that. When it comes to the ocean, if a ship sinks, we could still swim. It's very much possible that we'll die because we're kind of out of our element there. But even though we haven't really explored much of the ocean, we've definitely conquered it, I would say, in that aspect of just, it's not horrible. Now, also, I guess small tidbit about me, a little bit of lore as well. I'm a little bit scared of just the open ocean. Mostly the idea of just being stranded, because, you know, especially being an Elk King, the forest and land is kind of my domain. And so when I think about the ocean and being just floating there, looking in all directions and seeing the exact same thing, not 100% sure which way is north, south, east, or west, and just thinking that there is literally hundreds of thousands of things below me that could potentially kill me at any moment, and it's a terrifying thought. But I do want to go on a cruise someday. But the ocean can be a very scary place, just as much as the sky can be. It's just when it comes to the sky, we have less power over it than we do the oceans. So, kind of tying back to this castle in the sky, I think that's where all the awe comes into play, because it's this literal flying fortress in the sky. And yeah, so that goes there. Totoro, I wonder how many people. So I have, at the recording of this video, like 1 YouTube subscriber, which is awesome. Again, whoever, I've been trying to figure out who, but whoever is following me there, thank you very much. And like, oh God, how many do I have on Twitter? That's fine. And then I have like 7 followers on Twitch, and then Twitcher has, a number. What's that number? I'm looking it up right now. I apologize. 17. A lot of 7s. A lot of 1s and 7s. So I basically have 1, 7, and 17. Wow, that's cool. I'm glad this is being recorded. Anyway. I'm wondering how many people, let's say if I had like hundreds of followers, right, would stop following me after this. Totoro definitely goes in the overrated section. I know that after especially the making of the movie, it is like the mascot, but I think that's the thing. Like, it's hyped up to be the Mickey Mouse of the Ghibli films, and the film's just okay. Like, if anything, it's almost a little weird in some aspects, which is okay. You know, a lot of these movies have weird stuff going on with them. Ponyo, I would say, is kind of on the same tier of weirdness. And I know Ponyo is technically based off of The Little Mermaid, but just Ponyo herself, you know, she has chicken feet at one point. Doesn't make any sense. But with Totoro, never says anything. He's just kind of there. A lot of fantastical and random things happen. You know, giant trees growing. Flying around on a top. The cat bus, which I know obviously is super, super iconic to the point where it made itself into Persona 5. But overall, I think it's just kind of an okay movie. I know there's a couple of dark fan theories about it too, where at the very end where they're in the cat bus and the little girl runs out to go and see her mom. Uh, Also, I know it's technically probably like 5 seconds late, but also another spoiler warning if you haven't seen it. Although if you're clicking on this video, one, I have barely enough followers to actually warrant it, and two, you're probably already aware of Studio Ghibli at the time and have most likely seen Totoro, so if you still somehow have not seen it, I'm just going to put a little spoiler warning on the rest of this, just in case. But anyway, um, the dark fan theory is basically that the little girl actually dies, and the sister dies as well trying to go and find her. And when the mom sees them in the tree after delivering the corn, if this already sounds weird, you kind of get why it's in the overrated tier. They're actually dead because the mother herself is close to dying, or kind of teeter-tottering between the realm there. So, yeah, I'd put it at the overrated. You know, I know a lot of people love it. I just don't really see it. You know, it's kind of like we'll compare it to Ponyo here real quick, and then we'll move on. Ponyo, total adventure movie, right? Especially the last half. The whole place floods, and they go in this boat, and they're going on a little adventure. It's awesome. Totoro, the closest thing that you can call to a quote-unquote adventure in that movie is the cat bus scene, if anything. Now, do I think that the movie captures sort of the country life of Japan, as well as has amazing characters in it? Totoro, maybe not necessarily included in that. He's okay. But the other characters just having awesome personalities and character development and stuff. You know, I even struggle to say character development because they basically just go, they live there, they're happy-go-lucky, they meet Totoro, they're still happy-go-lucky, and then they almost lose the sister. Things get a little bit sad, but they deliver corn, and then we're back to get happy-go-lucky. So I almost struggle to say character growth, but the characters themselves are not bad. I per se, there's just not a lot of growth. If you were to describe the beginning and the end of the movie, a couple of happy sisters move into a country house, and the end of the movie, a couple of happy sisters take a bus ride home. That's pretty much it. There's not really much else going on here. Kiki's delivery service. Oh boy. Where do I put you? I will let you know right now, it is going in the top 2. I'm struggling here, though, to decide which one it actually goes in. Let's see. Kiki's Delivery Service. Because I do love the movie. I love it quite a bit. It's kind of the same, like, child tier as Ponyo and Totoro, I would argue. However, there is the scene where they have the frickin' Hindenburg, and the blimp goes sideways, and death and chaos. No real death, obviously. And up to that point, it's a little bit happy-go-lucky. There's obviously a little bit of stuff that is, I guess, to be considered kind of sad. I think one of the most poignant points in that film, actually, for me, was when... God, what is it? The grandma. The grandma's like, oh, I built this fish cake, but I guess I'm not going to have it done in time. I'm sorry, you can go on your way. And then Kiki's like, I'll help you make it in the old-timer oven because I know how to do that. And then she's like, oh, that's wonderful of you. And they bake the cake, and she's going to go to her party, and it's raining. So she still flies and delivers the cake. And when she delivers it, the little girl's like, and just super unappreciative. Meanwhile, Kiki had this awesome sort of experience with the grandmothers because she helped make it, right? And then the gift is brought, and there's just no appreciation whatsoever. She's like, my stupid grandmother, she made this again, even though I didn't want her to. And then just closes the door and leaves. And then after that, Kiki spent all that time. She was planning on going to a party with somebody, for like an aeronautics club type thing. Again, aviation. But, so she's late for that. She's drenched. And because of just movie plot reasons, she doesn't really have very many clothing options. So she's not able to go out. And on top of that, she gets sick the next day. So I definitely think that while this is kind of on the sort of happier-go-lucky side, there's a lot of real-world stuff in there as well. Like, Kiki doesn't necessarily have it easy the entire time. She meets like a really prudent witch at the very beginning who's like, "Oh yes, that's my town. I'm sure for you that must look like a big town, but it's pretty normal sized." And then she moves into a huge town. Kiki does, and it's more beautiful, honestly. I'd argue. But I definitely think that this one in particular, Kiki's Delivery Service, is a coming of age story, and so because she literally goes off on her own to grow up. It's part of the lore of the movie. And so I think for Kiki's Delivery Service, I'm gonna do my gut instinct and put that one on repeat. And individual tiers, bottom one not including, we'll say leftmost is best and then rightmost is worst within that tier as well. So kind of like a little sub tier. Yes, 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 and yes. Okay, I like that now. Wah, and then wah. Yes. Okay, that's pretty good for right now. Kiki's Delivery Service, though, I do like that it's just kind of a chill film for the most part. Like nothing too crazy is going on, and it captures really cool architecture as well, because it's definitely like a seaside sort of town, but they have like a giant clock tower. They have like a couple forest scenes as well, and you know how much I love the forests. And she's just like a happy-go-lucky witch on a broom, right? And most of the time, especially in United States and Hollywood, especially Hollywood, a witch is usually either A, this ugly, disgusting, just evil person that has absolutely no intentions other than harm unto others, and uses really weird ingredients for their cooking, or it's a sexy costume for Halloween. But in this one, she's just the normal witch. What I find a little weird, though, is that, and somebody did argue, well, not say argue, but kind of go into it a little bit more, but there's the cat Gigi that, oh, Kiki, Gigi, interesting, that is able to talk to her for most of the film. And then when she kind of like grows up, she can't hear it anymore. It's just a normal cat sounds. And I think as at least a part of the movie, what it's trying to signify, and she kind of loses her powers of flight, which, if I had to argue, is kind of a universal thing with all witches, because everybody seems to be able to do it. She just doesn't seem to have any special abilities aside from that, except for kindness, if anything. But with kind of the power of flight there, she loses that at one point, but gets it back, sort of. And with Gigi, she kind of loses that companionship because she can't actually talk and understand to him anymore. But I think that's kind of signifying the point in the movie where she kind of grows up, because she realizes, maybe subconsciously, she doesn't need to talk to him anymore. Like, she's now grown up. She has different relations with everybody and different experiences, and she's grown as a person. So she no longer needs to talk to the cat for company. Is kind of my interpretation. Now, was I super sad when she couldn't talk to it, even at the end of the film? Yeah. I was like, oh, dang, that sucks. But if you think about it that way, as far as a growing experience, definitely a lot better there. I think we're going to try and wrap this up in the next 10 minutes, and then we will switch over to Hatsune Miku Project Diva. Anyway. Porco Rosso! It's not overrated. It's definitely in the top 2. Right there? I'm asking my inner heart if this is truly what I feel. And I think the answer I'm hearing back is yes. Yes. Okay, Porco Rosso. Specifically in this placement, because I do think it is a little bit better than Ponyo. Because Ponyo is just kind of like that, yeah, we're going to have a good time. Porco Rosso is a little bit more serious in nature. Because it kind of takes place in a real world setting. Obviously, you have the fantastic element in that the main character is a pig, quite literally. An anthropomorphic pig. You'd think I'd be able to say that better since I am kind of a human elk type thing. But, the planes, the characters in the movie, it's all great. And not only that, it ends in the most ridiculous way, because basically the entire movie is that he used to fly for the Italian government. There was a bad dog fight, he was the only survivor, and he ran away. So anytime he goes in or around Italy, they are basically on the hunt for him, because they're like, you are a deserter. And he chose to go and fly seaplanes, which I think he was flying a seaplane before, but fly his seaplane down in the Adriatic, which is basically the water right next to Italy. So as far as running away, he did not go far. But I think the reason it goes up here and not in the I'd watch again category, which is just a little bit lower, is because with Porco Rosso, the landscapes are just gorgeous. Like, you got small little islands scattered throughout this beautiful sea landscape, cloud coverage with just hints of light coming through, highlighting just some of the islands, and just parts of the water. And by far, the climax, I wouldn't necessarily say climax, but my personal favorite part of the movie is the escape sequence. So real quick, again, spoiler, but whatever. He has to go to Italy because his plane mechanic, his aviation mechanic, whatever, lives in Italy. So he goes to Milan, and he goes to get the plane fixed there. Obviously it breaks to the point where it does not have any wings anymore. It's pretty much just a boat. And it was already having problems before, so it definitely needed some love and attention. But were it a car, insurance company would have claimed it as totaled and just said, go buy another one. Instead, he had his fixed, which is cool. Anyway, plane gets fixed, it gets upgraded, and the sort of building sequence leading up to that is so wholesome. It's the cutest thing, because you have the main mechanic, and he's this little mousy character that's just like, hey, I built this for you, and I'll just put it on your tab, basically, right? Because you're a good friend. I'll loan you some of it, right? Because I know you'll pay me back. And goes to build it, and because it's, I want to say around wartime, I'm not entirely sure, the only people that can help build the plane are his niece, the mechanic's niece, who's this just like really confident engineer, and she's awesome. A good example of what a lot of people say and signify is the sort of leading role, or like a strong leading role woman in a film. And she pops up and she's just like, yeah, I'm gonna build you a plane. You know, I feel really confident in my abilities. If you give me this chance, I won't disappoint you. And she doesn't. And after that, it gets real funny because all the men are gone and the only people left are like the women. As far as like, you know, cousins and aunts and other nieces and stuff like that. And so Porco Rosso's just sitting there, and he's like, wait, what are all these women doing here? And the guy's like, they're going to help build the plane. Much better than the men anyway. And so they're all just, it's the best. And it's really, you know, it's like when, way back when, and God, it's not even that long ago, but when World War, I want to say it was II, hit and was done, during that time, women went into the workforce with more fervor than ever before, and wanted to do that more than being stay at home, which, yeah, good for them. It's awesome. But it just really showed and highlight that, you know, they still get the job done. Doesn't matter. And just all those characters, especially the grandmothers in that are just absolutely adorable. And right after that is my favorite scene, which is the chase sequence, and or the escape sequence technically, because he is flying his plane full tilt through the channels of Milan and manages to do a takeoff. It's insane. But yeah, it goes in the on repeat because I feel like it's a hidden gem. The characters are great. Um, if maybe a little misguided in some ways, but they're also real. You know, people definitely have flaws. That goes without saying. And this film is not afraid to show it because there are a couple of times when Porco Rosso goes back into human form, his real name being Marco, and they show his face once, very briefly, maybe twice. Even the last segment where they're like, "Wait, what happened to your face?" They don't even show that. Granted, he's all beat up, but the movie ends with, oh, and the pirates. Don't even get me started on the pirates in that movie. They're awesome. Okay, so the beginning of the movie happens. They hijack all of this stuff out of this this boat, this yacht, and as they're doing that, well, no, they've already done it at that point. But there's a bunch of girls that they kidnapped, and the girls are super sassy. They're like, haha, you can't hit him. And they're like trying to shoot at Porco Rosso. And it's just like, you can't hit him. You keep missing. And when the plane goes down, obviously everybody's safe, but all the girls start jumping overboard. And the pirate's like, wait, no, you can't go out there. That's dangerous. Because they still care about and the whole thing is that this plane is just swarming with a bunch of kidnapped girls because it's like, well, we can't just kidnap some of them because we'd be separating them from their friends. That if there's any scenes that I should advise you to watch, maybe on YouTube, it's that first scene where the little girls are being kidnapped, and just the banter that goes on between that entire sequence, and being saved by Porco Rosso, and the chase scene, the escape scene from Milan. And so those are definitely the two scenes I would recommend as like the highlights of the film. But this one also kind of has that cheesy sort of love romance story, but it's also not cheesy, you know? Because while the two main characters that love each other do in fact love each other, it's kind of a very sort of one-sided love for a while. Like, you know, Porco Rosso definitely appreciates... I'm gonna call her Meg, because it's the same voice actress that voices Meg from Hercules. I unfortunately forget her name. God, sucks. Whatever. It's definitely one-sided for a lot of it, and she's just kind of like, you know, he keeps coming by, but he hasn't kind of like given up being a sea pilot, and she's loved pilots. Let's get that straight. Pilots her whole life, and this is now the one that she's kind of got a fixation on. And at this point, she's kind of like, unless he gives that back, I'm not really looking for love anywhere else, because there's another character that is also a seaplane pilot that makes advances towards her, but she's like, nope, I'm gonna turn you down. This is basically like my last love, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I will be single the rest of my life. So I don't know. It's not quite as like, oh my god, I love you type thing that comes from Howl's Moving Castle, which is why it goes into the watch it again for Howl's. But with Porco Rosso, it's a little bit less heartthrob, I suppose. But either way, we're just at that hour mark now, so we're going to be taking a quick break. I'm going to be stopping the recording, so the next portion of this stream is going to be no VOD whatsoever. So definitely would advise to stick around for that. I'll be posting the picture of this on Twitter in the break time. And yeah, if you're still here when we start, we're going to be playing some songs, having a good time, and we'll get going from there. But thanks again, and short break. We'll be right back.